All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2014. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules and bump ba bump 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 bump. Oh, that's pretty amazing. I haven't had coffee yet and I hit that note. Maybe Lady Pitbull. All right, well, maybe not Lady Pitbull right now. Here on UCY.TV. Good morning, everybody. Wendy is added to the call, but the call failed, so not really sure if she is there or not. I know that they had some pretty wicked storms coming through there last night. Did anybody see there were tornado warnings all up around the Great Lakes near Cleveland? And then I saw some flash flooding that happened around Cleveland last night. I was prepping for those storms to hit here, and we never saw anything last night. So not really sure what's going on with that at the moment, but we can check it out. Let me just type, Wendy, you see the phone? I don't know. Just add yourself. Add yourself. It's too hard to type and talk at the same time, so I can't do that. So good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. My thermometer says 74 degrees, but it sure as hell feels a lot hotter than that here. Let me see. Let me see. We'll give you a time and temperature. It's 9:03 a.m. and the temperature says 60. I think it's more than that. Alright, so I have one thermometer that says 60, and I have one that says 74. But, I have a feeling that the one that's 74 has not updated since yesterday. Hey, there's Lady Pitbull.
How are you?
Good, what's going on?
Oh, my phone was out, my cable was out, everything was out.
From your storm, right?
No, I don't think it was from the storm, cause, things worked last night, so, I don't know. I woke up this morning and the internet was gone and the phone wasn't working and it's just ridiculous.
Maybe a pipe filled up with water.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was a lot of rain and there was like tornadic stuff going on here yesterday for sure.
We, when I worked out of the office in Rochester, the company that I'd worked for years, every time we would get rain, we would lose our internet.
And oh my God.
Yeah, it is pretty aggravating. And we'd call the internet service provider. And here's the thing, we were a reseller. So we sold circuits, we sold routers, we sold to corporations. So we did business with all of the providers, okay? So anyway, we'd call them up and we'd be like, the hell, it's raining again, our internet's out. And they'd send someone there and no one could find it. And over the years, we went through a number of different service providers. Everybody had the same damn problem in the end. It ended up being the actual telco provider who was providing the lines. And here's the problem. Every time it rained, the pipe filled up with water.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
I am not. And so they'd short out the connection or whatever. But yeah, that's what it was. There was a pipe that filled up with water. Somewhere. Not even at our building, just like somewhere along the way.
Oh my God. So much for underground cables being in weather.
Well, I think it was probably in the provisioning of the industrial park we were in somewhere. But.
Interesting. That's interesting.
So, what happened with those storms?
Well, that was interesting too, because I was, in a little town that got nailed 2 years ago, by the storms. We just happened to be taking my mom out for like a late Mother's Day dinner, and it was in Dexter, and Oh my God, I was in a couple of stores before the storm hit and people were freaking out just because, they had gone through it a couple years before.
Oh no.
And, it was
tornadoes are pretty traumatic.
Yeah, everybody was really, really, really traumatized and very upset. And when we got to the restaurant, they were saying, you gotta get in the basement, and nobody was moving. So, everybody was just sitting at the tables, and so were we. And she's, the lady's running around going, oh my God, come on, I'm responsible for all you people.
Yeah.
And we were in a building that was like, built in the 1800s, so it was pretty safe. And, it was probably the best building in all the whole town, the best basement and everything. It was all stone down there. And, but we never really did go to the basement, so, it pretty much blew over us, but some places around here did have tornado touchdowns.
Did you pay attention to what happened in Cleveland? I only caught like a couple things through my feed, but they had flash floods. I saw cars like almost fully submerged underwater, and they were under a tornado watch.
Yeah, that was like obviously after it hit us.
Right. That was last night.
Yeah, more toward the evening, and tornadoes are harder to see in the dark.
Well, I'm going to tell you, here's something that I want to share with everybody. I used to have these recurring nightmares when I was a kid, and there were like 5 of them. Oh. And all but one hasn't happened yet. Well, that was the little flying triangles. Remember I told you about those pew pew shooting out those little lasers? But one of the ones, and thank God this didn't happen to me, but it sure as hell happens now. We talked about this. Oh, it was probably at this point now 7 or 8 years ago when I was chosen as my area's representative to go to Albany for this, FEMA Emergency Preparedness Conference back whenever it was that I was doing all those training classes. And, so I met people from all over New York State that were all prep minded. We were there for a 3-day conference. They paid for hotel, for food. And we got to just learn all kinds of stuff about emergency preparedness and all the agencies and what to do. And it was presentations and seminars all day. So we're sitting around talking, and one of the things that came up is the fact that, and I don't know how it came up, but I happen to mention this, that I used to have nightmares all the time when I was a kid about it being in the middle of the night. I would get out of bed and I'd open the curtains and there would be a tornado right outside my curtains in the dark. And you didn't know he was there because, you couldn't see it in the dark. Wow. And I would be so scared because there wouldn't be time to do anything or go anywhere. And, the guy who was sitting next to me looks at me and he says, are you kidding me? I'm like, what? No. And he's like, I used to have the same dream. I was like, he says, and I've been thinking about this because back when we were kids, it wasn't warm enough. They didn't used to, as far as I know, and I've looked, I don't think they used to have tornadoes at night. When we were kids, do you ever remember night tornadoes? It was literally not cold enough for convection at night.
You mean not warm enough?
I mean, yeah, warm and not cold enough. Not warm enough, yes.
Wow. That I would have to really, really think about.
I mean, I've done research and I've told the story for years. I mean, I'm half asleep right now, but somebody help me do more research. In the 70s and the 80s, did we get night tornadoes? 'Cause I don't ever remember seeing like a news story about Kansas. They got hit while they were all sleeping, but maybe.
I do remember some hellish thunderstorms when I was really, really young.
Yeah, thunderstorms are one thing, but
yeah,
tornadoes in the middle of the night. And normally at night it's cold or cooler. Mm-hmm. Think about the hot air. If you've ever seen a tornado form, I've seen a couple form. Mm-hmm. And you start getting when the cloud starts to grow.
Yep.
Like before the storm, when it's starting to turn into a thunderhead, and then this whole thing. And I mean, we had one out the back here that we watched probably 10 years ago. I got a picture of it. And then I had one when I was coming out of Colorado heading to Kansas that I got a picture of as it was just like dropping down out of the clouds. But there's a few things that those two events had in common, and that was that very sharp line between hot and cold.
Yes.
That's required. You gotta have that warm, moist air to get up and under, and then it creates this megastorm. So, I mean, think about it. It was lots of cold winters when we were kids. And I don't ever remember. I don't know. We'll have to look at it. Anyway, so I told that story just because those are probably one of my worst nightmares.
That's weird that guy had the same damn nightmare.
Yeah, the same damn night. That was
Isn't that
weird.
strange?
That was weird. I didn't see him again after the end of after that conference, but.
Wow.
That was, and he really had looked like he'd seen a ghost too, cause he just gave me that look, and I was like, what?
Wow. That's amazing. Cause, I mean, how often does that's probably even
Well,
rarer.
right. That's what I kept saying. How often does that happen? And then the fact that we're here sitting next to each other at this conference.
Yeah.
What are the chances of that?
That is just wild. That's wild. That's definitely. Geez, you could have won the lottery with those odds, probably.
You know, we had the whole breakfast table going, wow, that's messed up.
I bet. So it was interesting. I mean, I did look up in the clouds, and there were like rotating clouds. Nothing that formed, but it was pretty scary around here. I had Jimmy texting me, like, going, there's a tornado, like, they're saying Dexter, and I'm like, I'm in Dexter right now.
Oh, no.
I ran out and took a picture of the place where I was at, because it was called the Dexter Pub, and I sent it to him, and I'm like, see, look. So it was pretty interesting, but he got slammed, I guess, last night, like, after he was on air.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so.
Jimmy okay?
Yeah, I'm hoping he is. He said it was booming out there pretty good, but, I guess he's alright.
Hey, did anybody hear, if Prepper Chick was on this morning? I think they had some good storms that swung through too.
I saw her in the chat room.
Okay. Yay. Good morning, Prepper Chick.
Yay. And I was trying to get my internet going, so I was trying to hear her, but I couldn't even get it on, so. And I mean, like, all of my stuff is like, not here, so I'm like completely ill prepared this morning. But I do remember we were talking about yesterday was I think you wanted to touch on like the cat litter issue. Mm-hmm. With
I need more coffee before I do that.
I see. So I'll have to get in here and try and scrounge something up here.
Well, I'm just posting our saying for today.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I ran, I guess, a saying that we cloned your drone.
I saw that with pretty pictures.
There's a MERS case in Orlando. Saying.
Saw that too. I'm going to tell you my whole thing I brought up yesterday about the how the Ebola virus just disappeared from any of the news. I found a story yesterday that I want to read you guys, proving that I am absolutely not insane. That just a week before they came out and said, "Oh, we've fixed it all." And all the Ebola cases are under control now. There was mass panic a week before. And it had also said that all the doctors that were there were completely inexperienced with Ebola. They were like fresh doctors who didn't have a lot of experience with it. And it was their worst fears. And a week later, it's all good, man.
How can that be?
It's
That's
not.
impossible.
It's not. I'm telling you, I really think that there were cases in Italy and they put a lid on it.
I think so too, man. The World Health Organization's.
Well, that and us, cause I'll tell you, I watched a clip from, Pigmine's channel yesterday in regards to the MERS, and they had the doctor on. I think it was CNN. I will play this one in a minute. I gotta finish posting here. And, she was talking about it. The clip was about how dangerous is MERS. And she's like, oh, well, you know, it's done this and blah, blah, blah. Here's something I learned. The first case they ever saw was in 2012. So, if you remember me saying when I was looking at like the camel connection and how they're saying it came from camels, and I said I only found like one reference from a few years ago about MERS. Well, that's why, because it never existed before 2012.
Oh, God.
Or at least in humans, right? So, how interesting is that? They just pop out of the sky. I was correct. She went through what it was, and it is an upper respiratory. Though they never mentioned it's a bird flu, which I thought was odd because they both came out at the same time. But she's like, oh, but it's got a high mortality rate, 30%. What? But
well,
isn't Ebola like 70 to 90 and we just had this huge outbreak and they were worried about it going global and no one is even mentioning it like we don't even remember it ever happened 2 weeks ago?
Exactly.
2 weeks ago? I'm telling you that this is one of those times that I've been warning you about is reading between the lines. This was headline freaking news. The worst we've ever seen. Ebola has broken containment. Remember that headline?
Yes.
That was a couple weeks ago.
Now
it's not even mentioned, like we don't even know that there is something called Ebola.
Wow. This is very, very disconcerting.
Yeah, I'm finding it very scary. Cause you know what? That'll be something that'll creep up on us. And like I said, 21-day incubation period. So, you know, it still might take a couple weeks, but bam, if they get people with that all over, well, how are you going to combat that?
You're not.
No.
You're just simply not. But yet they're talking about, you know, the Nigerian, you know, kidnappers with those girls. You know what I mean? That's what they're talking about.
Yeah. And you want to know something else about all that? I almost think, last night I mentioned it to my friend that I had seen Mike Rivero post a story from a Nigerian newspaper a couple days ago that showed that Boko Haram had actually released the girls 2 weeks ago. No, think. I was like, why would they do that? Well, in the meantime, we now have special forces on the ground in that part of the country or the continent. And now...
Yeah.
What was that?
They sent FBI and CIA too.
They sent alphabet agencies and Secret Service and Black Ops and they got drones now and all this other crap. So first I was like, well, that was a good, easy excuse for us to now drop into another section of Africa that we weren't in before.
That's right.
But what just hit me as I was thinking is, what if there still really is a big pandemic going on there and now it's getting like way more serious? So they said, well, let's keep this story about the girls going so we can drop more resources in there to help you guys and it can be under the cover of darkness now. Because now they think we're sending you money and supplies to help save those girls.
Right.
Like, I thought it was odd in the middle of, like, ramping up of World War III with Russia. All of a sudden, we're going to be sending military support and John Kerry coming out in the middle of everything, making statements.
Damn it. Sorry. That's my phone.
Machine gun.
I'm sorry.
But am I seeing that weird? I mean, in the middle of all this in the Ukraine and whatever, and John Kerry comes out talking about Boko Haram and Obama comes out and, what's her name? The wife comes out in support of it. And you know what I mean? Like it's all about this. And it was over 200 and some odd 70 girls, I believe. So it was a horrible number of people, but there's so many other pressing things going on and an Ebola freaking outbreak going on that nobody seems to be mentioning anywhere.
That's right.
I don't know, guys. Something is just not right about that. It's headline news and they're not capitalizing on it.
Or they're trying to distract from it.
Right, it's headline. Here's the oddbally. It's headline news and they are not capitalizing. They are money-hungering scumbags.
Oh, God, yes.
Anything that's gonna make a headline and boost your ratings, you're gonna clamp on like a rabid little chihuahua.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right.
Absolutely.
Here's the, I didn't have a cup. I had a banner and it says pro-caffeinating, the tendency to not start anything until you've had a cup of coffee.
There you go. That's awesome.
But, alright, that's all I'm going to say about that. I will read more when I'm done in a moment. I have to post over there for my show, though. We have to share this. So, I don't know, go grab something quick. I've done one.
Alright. No problem. Let's see. Oh, how about, since we're on the Ebola thing, official second reported case of MERS reported. MERS. Here we go. This is a very long. Let's see. Health officials have confirmed a second U.S. case of a mysterious virus that has sickened hundreds in the Middle East. Really, we're not really hearing very much about that it's sickened hundreds. We haven't even heard those numbers, have we?
Yeah, well, I saw a story yesterday, that had said like 178, I believe. And then, then later at night when I was doing the night share of all the videos, I actually saw a story in my feed that was from one of the international, publications. I don't know if it was like El Arabia or Press TV, one of them that does stories too. And like I always put a grain of salt into that stuff until I find corroboration. But one of those said 570 cases, which would put it at almost 5 times what we're being told here.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me either.
No. Oh my God. These alphabet agencies or organizations, World Health Organization, they just want to cover everything up. Mm-hmm. They don't want to tell anybody anything or try and save anybody.
Or they're the ones that are making them in their bio labs and then allowing them to percolate.
Right. That's more accurate, I would say.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree with that supposition. Absolutely. All right, it says the latest case is not an American. He's a resident of Saudi Arabia visiting Florida, who is now in an Orlando hospital.
Now hold on. I actually heard in one of the stories that I watched last night that I don't know what nationality he was, but he had been a doctor that was practicing down in Africa.
Ah, well that's interesting.
That was what the clip that we're gonna play here when you're done, where the doctor was talking about, the horrible mortality rate of 30%. She was the one that actually mentioned that you need really close contact to get it. So it's not like the flu or it's any surface you touch that you could spread it. You have to have daily close contact with somebody and it's not very easy to catch.
That's interesting. That's probably the reason why it's only a 30% mortality rate is what.
Right. But here's my thing. If it's not that easy to catch, then how is it easily jumping from camels to humans?
Yeah, that's a really good valid question, I'd say.
I would say, cause I mean, it's harder to jump from animals to humans than it is to jump from humans to humans. And if it's hard for it to jump from humans to humans, then it must have been really damn hard for it to jump from camels to humans.
Right, absolutely. How the hell does that happen anyway? I mean, were they making out with a freaking camel? I mean, what? You know what I mean?
Wow.
Come on.
Let's not even postulate what they were doing with the camel.
I mean, okay, a camel will sneeze and maybe the particulates get on you or something, but I don't know. You know, it's weird. I mean, how does this stuff happen in natural, in a natural surrounding,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Without being cajoled in a petri dish.
Exactly. It doesn't happen in nature.
No.
There's a catalyst behind it.
Yes.
Oh
a
my
catalyst
God.
with like a C, an I, and an A in it.
Yeah. The WHO.
Yes, there you go.
Jeez. Unbelievable.
E-I-E-I-O.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's awesome.
All right, I'll be serious now. Sorry, guys.
Okay. All right, let's see. All right, so this resident of Saudi Arabia that was visiting Florida was diagnosed with MERS, or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, Sunday night. It's a respiratory illness that begins with a flu-like fever and cough and can lead to shortness of breath, pneumonia, and then death.
Oh.
Fortunately, the U.S. cases so far have not been severe. The first case, a man in Indiana, which is what you said the other day, that was correct, was released from a hospital late last week, and the second patient is doing well. Officials said the two cases were not linked. Officials said. Right. The risk to the public remains very low, said one of the doctors for the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, my ass. MERS is a respiratory illness that begins with a flu-like fever and cough. I just read that. What the hell? You know what? That paragraph is in this freaking thing twice.
Yeah, sometimes they have these automated news scrapers.
Yeah,
if that's an Associated Press story, that's all automated.
It is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So there you go.
What do you know about that? I'll have to pay more attention to that. Let's see. An American, was a healthcare worker at a hospital in Saudi Arabia's capital city who flew to the United States on April 24th on a plane that originated in Riyadh, stopped in London, oh nice, and then landed in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, took a bus to Munster, Indiana, and became sick and went to the hospital. He improved and was released from the hospital on Friday. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to keep going on. This man was also a healthcare worker in a hospital where MERS cases were treated, the CDC said. He traveled on May 1st on flights from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, first to London, then to Boston, then to Atlanta, and finally to Orlando. Wow, so
he was Typhoid Mary. That's what that sounds like.
Why? Okay. So why in the hell would he go?
Somebody who had been working as a doctor in an area. Now what's weird is that I swear she said he had been in Africa. But MERS isn't in Africa, is it? MERS is in Saudi Arabia. Now, maybe I heard it wrong, but I could have swore she said Africa. Hold on. We're going to go there. But if you had someone who was working especially a doctor who's working on contagious illnesses, he had been in an area treating contagious patients, I would say that for quarantine purposes, before you allowed him to leave the country, if the incubation period was 21 days, he would have to go into quarantine, wouldn't he?
Yeah, do you remember Sanjay Gupta was in Africa actually having contact with
Ebola victims.
Yeah. So that dude, did they?
I thought that was for ratings, but we haven't seen Sanjay since either.
No, we haven't.
No, he hasn't been on any clips or anything. I haven't seen him in anything.
You think Sanjay is bringing it and spreading it here?
I don't know. Where is he? Where's Gupta?
Oh, maybe the Poopta is like, oh my God, bleeding from every orifice right now, and they're just not saying anything.
I don't know, because here's the thing. That's another case in point, though. It was ratings so much so that they sent Sanjay Gupta to the middle of the Ebola outbreak, okay? So now it's nothing. Now it's like, nope, never happens. all under control. Don't worry about it. We're not even going to pretend like we even remember it from 2 weeks ago.
Right, and isn't that like the incubation period? Like we still haven't heard anything from Mr. Poopta, so oh boy, maybe his symptoms are starting to materialize here.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. I don't know. That's interesting, isn't it? So, okay, why in the hell? This is my question. This guy gets on a plane, and then he traveled from Saudi Arabia, then to London. Okay, I can see that. I can see Saudi Arabia to London, then to Boston, and then a layover in Atlanta, and then finally to Orlando. That doesn't make sense at all. I think you can get, well, I think you
depends on if you took a cheap flight. Cause I mean, you'll have to come in from London. Usually you don't come into Boston, though I've never flown into Boston just because I'm in New York State, so there's no reason to, you know. I usually either go to LaGuardia or New York. But a lot of times if I'm coming down from like the South or the Southwest, they drop us off in Atlanta or Chicago.
Okay.
So he went from
Boston to Atlanta, then to Orlando.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Boston's an international airport. Logan, I think it's called, right? Boston Logan Airport. So you come from London, which is an international,
hub.
A big one. Right. So yeah, you would probably, the flights from London would probably do Boston, LaGuardia, Newark, Atlanta. He probably could have gotten a flight to Atlanta direct if he spent more on his ticket. Or if the time, you know, who knows, the time he was coming in, they just have their automated route software. So it depends on, you know, especially if you're doing 4 or 5 plane changes.
Yeah.
They gotta orchestrate all those, so.
Yeah. Or orchestrate might be a nice word. All right.
And the sad fact of the matter is you're at the mercy of the machine scheduling you. You know, you don't really have a lot of say. Right. Unless you want to spend money. You know, if you've ever like tried to see how much a plane ticket would be, it's a lot of fun. Cause yeah, you could pay $300 for the 8 stops in your trip and the 12 hours that you're flying. Or you could spend $1,200 and it's direct in 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I've actually, known people with, had those experiences before. But it says, so he was traveling on May 1st, and then by May 8th he was placed in isolation at the hospital in Orlando.
Wow.
So, and let's see,
I still say that they should have made sure that they had him in quarantine or something before they let him go gallivanting around the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
made sure
it just
that
reminds
he was okay.
me of that. It just reminds me of that movie, The 12 Monkeys.
Oh my god, I love that movie.
I do.
That was one of my favorite all-time movies ever.
It is. It's an awesome flick. I've got it like right here. But I mean, that guy took a plane all around the planet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that is how that spread. And it just seems like they're going to do that same thing someday here. You know what I mean? It just seems like, I don't know, real life mimics the movies or whatever you don't want to say. Yeah. It's crazy crap.
Here, you want me to play a little bit of the clip of the doctor talking about this?
Yeah, man, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just got connected here. Should you be worried about MERS? Now, let's remember what we read about Ebola. And remember that before we even do this, let me pull the Ebola story. Oh, shit. Here we go. This is out of CNN. This was April 23rd. So this was just over maybe 2.5 weeks ago. Ebola outbreak. Death toll rises to over 140 in Liberia and Guinea. A total of 142 deaths have been reported from the Ebola outbreak in Guinea and Liberia. The World Health Organization said the virus is still limited to these 2 nations. Now remember, it had broken containment then after this. Mm-hmm. But there was this story because they said something at the bottom that I wanted to make sure I read to you guys. The virus is still limited to 2 nations, the World Health Organization said Tuesday. Despite rumors, now what's interesting is this is one of the last stories that came out, despite rumors of it spreading to other countries. 19 suspected cases reported in Sierra Leone tested negative for the virus, it said. Now remember, there were other stories that came out and said that this was a new strain. They were finding a new strain that was not showing up in the tests.
Mm-hmm.
In a statement on its website, WHO said Guinea has reported a total of 208 clinical cases of Ebola, including 136 deaths. Liberia has reported 34, including 6 deaths. Ebola is one of the world's deadliest viruses and kills up to 90% of those infected. It spreads in the blood and shuts down the immune system, causing high fever, headache, muscle pain, often accompanied by bleeding. Now, what's interesting is that some of these symptoms are the same symptoms that you get with MERS. Oh.
What?
Nice. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that. In its first emergence of Ebola in West Africa, hold on. It's the first emergence of Ebola in West Africa, which means doctors and health officials in the region don't have any experience with the virus. The aid organization Doctors Without Borders has called the outbreak unprecedented because previous cases have always been limited to a small area. The virus is named after the Ebola River in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's all she wrote. Now, This was just a few weeks ago. And we have a story that we read yesterday that said there's nothing to see here because it's all over with and we got it under control. Unprecedented, they said. Did they not?
Yeah.
And we have no experience, they said. Did they not?
That's right.
So we just waved a magic wand and in 2 weeks, all those unprecedented Ebola cases that had spread outside of the original country just magically disappeared.
They all got better. Are you kidding?
Yeah, 90% mortality rate. I'm sure they did. Or like I said, they all died.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, if all the typhoid Marys died, well,
that's right.
I don't know. Something is just not sitting right with me about this.
Absolutely not. And I'm not even worried about that stupid MERS thing. I mean, that's like the SARS and the swine flu.
Well, SARS actually was worse. And that's what I was saying yesterday. I remember SARS, people were like drowning in their own phlegm with that. You know, their lungs would just swell up so they couldn't breathe. That was a pretty nasty upper respiratory virus. And if you remember, they were loading people with Tamiflu, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Just be aware too. I saw an article a few days ago that they had done a lot more research into Tamiflu, and that isn't very good stuff. Maybe if I have some time, I don't know if while we're on air, I probably won't because, you know, it's early and I'm tired. So it takes a lot to keep it together when I'm tired. But maybe while Kevin's on and I'm listening, I'll see if I can find that Tamiflu story because that still is like the first line of defense that doctors are trying to push on you.
That's crazy. I mean, what about silver? I mean, it works way more efficiently.
Exactly. Or any of the other herbals. I mean, Gringo, you dropped me something yesterday. One of his things that he's grown in his vegetable garden, toothache plant, I think it was called. And on Wikipedia, this thing had like 40 different uses and they were all like antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, you know, did all these great things. And there are so many herbs that do that. Oregano's another one.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oregano oil. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. You were telling me that last week, you know, because I was having a headache, put it on the temples.
Oh yeah, too. You guys laugh, but I really am serious about buying 50 pounds of turmeric. Okay. I've been talking about it for a long time, but I really think it's a good shit hit the fan kit add-on. Number one, I like to buy in bulk because you get a good price on it, and I squeak. I really do. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And so if I can get a deal like that, just makes my day. So sure, it might be $12 or $15 a pound when you buy it as a pound, but it's only $3 a pound when you buy it as 50. So,
yeah.
I did a search and I've been looking for quite a while and it was not anything that was easy to find, 50 pounds organic that someone was selling. So I stumbled across this herbal site yesterday out of San Francisco, it appears. They have, in any size that you possibly want, all these different herbals, these teas. I just couldn't even believe oils. You can either get them in individualized packages, and I think there's 4 different sizes there, or you can go to the wholesale section, and then they have them starting at 1 pound to 50, all the way up with pricing. You know, the more you buy, the cheaper it is. So I was like, wow, I bookmarked that site because it was really great. It had my ginger tea, it had all kinds of stuff. So then I happened to see under the contact us, they have an affiliate program. So, you know what? I haven't signed up for any affiliate programs for UCY, but I was pretty psyched because if they have 50 pounds organic at $3 something a pound for turmeric,
right,
I'm going to be their affiliate. That's a good number. And I've talked about it many times, but if anyone has not looked at the health benefits of turmeric and the active ingredient is curcumin, you have to. I read this Dr. Mercola story yesterday. Almost every cancer on the planet, it stops the, what do they call it? Atopsis? Is that what it is? When the cells, atopsis I think is cell death, right? It causes the cells, the cancer cells, to commit suicide. And almost every cancer they've tested it with, it's worked. Lung, prostate, breast, brain. It's unfreaking believable. And that's not, the cancer fighting is just one of the many things that it does. You
just eat it? Is that it?
There's a couple ways. There's a couple ways. You could take capsule form, which is what I do now, but I didn't realize Dr. Mercola was saying that absorption is something that doesn't happen easily with turmeric. So there's a couple ways you could do it. One sounded pretty yucky. It was mixing with coconut oil and something else. I was like, blah. But the other way was boiling it. You start, you put it in a pot and you boil some water. I think it was like a tablespoon per quart, and you boil it until it turns into a suspension, and then you let it cool and you drink it. So it'd be like a turmeric tea. You can cook with it too. You put it in, the Indians, they've been using it for 1,000 years. They call it the God spice because it cures so many things. Or the spirit spice, something, the ghost spice, something like that. The holy spice. That's
yeah.
But you cook with it. They cook with it every day. Just, what's that mean? So I don't know. I would have to say that anybody who, it also has anti-inflammatory properties. So most disease is all caused by inflammation. You know what I mean? So I would highly recommend, at least if you haven't looked into it, you do. And something else I learned yesterday that it's also part of, because when I was looking at how to grow it, someone, I think Blood had said in chat yesterday that you can get seeds. I was like, I've never seen turmeric seeds. What do they look like? They're roots. They're like little, they look like bulbs. That's what they call them. You buy bulbs. But I was like, wow, they look a lot like fresh ginger root. Well, they're part of the same family.
Interesting.
And ginger is also a major anti-inflammatory.
Gringo Captain posted the plant that you were looking for, the toothache plant, Amicilla ouracea, something like that, or I can't even pronounce this shit. Amicilla. Or ouracea. That's as best as I can do. It's a toothache plant, Paracress, it says, or jambu. Those are the names for it.
Yeah, I'm sure if you search toothache plant and wiki, you'll find the entry that we were looking at. But if you scroll all the way down, you'll see the little chart with all the different uses. And
look at that.
Amazing. And I mean, seriously, this isn't like just mumbo jumbo anymore. Scientists have been taking a big interest in herbals And they're proving that we've been right all along.
Yeah. Absolutely. But the stupid ass part about the scientists getting a hold of all these herbals is that they're always trying to come up with the synthetic versions of it, and they screw up the whole, process just by doing that.
Well, that's what they're doing with all the Chinese medicinals and I don't remember which pharmaceutical company it was, but yeah, they were reverse engineering a lot of the Chinese herbals and then patenting them.
Oh my God, it just drives you crazy. They're taking the basic thing that is found in nature and they're trying to restructure it.
Yeah,
just
to make money.
Yeah.
All right, here, I want to play this clip. Should you be worried about MERS? Should you?
No, I don't think.
I don't know. Here, let's see.
I think the Ebola's worse.
We are getting word at this hour that the second case of MERS, that deadly virus MERS, has been imported into the United States. We want to bring in our senior medical correspondent, Elizabeth Cohen. She joins us from Atlanta. I think a lot of people aren't really familiar with this. Give us an idea of what it is and why it's so deadly.
It's a 30% mortality rate, Michaela, so that is really quite high. So it's called MERS, and it's...
Now stop. Notice how, right, let's ramp the... If this were me, and I were writing an article, I would make sure that if it were 30%, I'd be like, well, it's a pretty high mortality rate, but remember, Ebola's up at 90, so it can be a lot worse. You would at least reference it because it was a headline 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
This just makes no sense whatsoever. Okay.
It's a respiratory syndrome, and you can see here that it was first reported just in 2012, and it can start innocently enough, but it can get very bad very quickly, and it's spread mostly through close contact, family members, people you're living with. And so what the CDC is going to report this afternoon is that a second case of MERS has now been found in the United States. There was one in Indiana recently. This new one is in Florida. Now again, just like the first case, this is a healthcare worker who was working in Saudi Arabia and flew back to the...
Oh, Saudi Arabia, yeah. I thought I heard Africa. I had Africa on the brain, sorry.
United States. Now, all we know about this person is that this person's in Florida and took several flights to get from Saudi Arabia to Florida. And so now they need to go and contact the people who were on that flight to make sure that they get checked out as well.
So, Elizabeth, the concern at this point is what? That once it is here, that it will be passed within the United States? They've seen no evidence of that yet, though, have they?
No, they haven't. And it's interesting. If we look at the Indiana case, they looked at those family members, they looked at colleagues, and they didn't find that they found that it had not spread to other people. So it's just that one case. This doesn't spread as easily as, say, something like the flu. This takes a little bit more of an effort. So what we've seen in the Middle East is that...
Hold on. This doesn't spread as easily like, let's say, the flu. How about, let's say, Ebola?
That's right. I was thinking that in my head. Absolutely right.
Because, again, here's another pandemic. Why would you not mention the pandemic that was in the news 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that has what, right?
Right.
You just said it, the 90% kill rate.
Right. But no, we make it akin to the flu.
Wow, can anybody say reactionary tool? Go ahead.
Well, while this is playing, I'm actually trying to find a story from about a week ago that had said that and I mentioned it yesterday, the day before, that they had announced that they are not going to be releasing numbers anymore because of undue panic.
Jeez, man.
So it went underground.
Wow.
All right, here, let's finish this.
The flu. This takes a little bit more of an effort. So what we've seen in the Middle East is that it's family members, it's husbands, wives, children. It's passing from patient to doctor or patient to nurse. It's that kind of close contact. This isn't the kind of thing like the common cold where it's really easily spread, where I could just touch a surface that you touched and I could get sick. It doesn't seem to be spreading that way. And so I think that's one reason why, while this is scary and while nobody likes, deadly illnesses coming into our country, this isn't something that you would likely get by, let's say, sitting next to someone on a bus for 5 minutes.
But I think, Elizabeth, the thing that's concerning to people is you showed us the full screen there of the symptoms. we've all had something like that recently, shortness of breath, fever, a cough. A lot of us over the winter had a case of that. How do we differentiate? Otherwise, everybody's going to be going to the doctor.
Right, I think in my family we had several cases of that over the winter. So yes, I see exactly what you mean. So I'll tell you, Michaela, if I were this sick person's wife and I had a cough, I would be really worried. If I were this person's colleague and had worked closely with them day after day, I might be concerned. If I were just anyone, I wouldn't be concerned. If I were just in the state of Florida, which I was recently, I'm not worried. This is again close contact, and I think that's really important to remember.
So then even why is this news?
Right.
If it's nothing to worry about, then why are there 8 clips about it over the last 2 days? And why is the CDC involved? And why do you have like fancy CNN graphics to show the numbers? Why does it matter? Why are we not looking at Ebola now? I just found a smoking gun, guys. Ooh. We're going to lead up to the smoking gun. So the one CNN story that I read before said that just Liberia and Guinea had cases, right? And there were rumors, unfounded rumors, that it spread to other countries. And that was on the 23rd of April, that story came out. Well, guess what? On April 4th, there was a story that says Mali reports 3 suspected cases of Ebola. Now, I remember it because it was all over. It was all over Africa. And now it's only 2 countries. March 28th, health officials try to contain panic over Ebola in West Africa. Front page Africa, pressing the panic button on Ebola. ABC, March 24th, Ebola outbreak, health officials work to prevent spread. And that was in Guinea. They are trying to contain the panic as they try to prevent the deadly fever from spreading west Africa. Ebola outbreak caused by a new strain. This is out of the UK Reuters publication. Here, let's go here. I'm working my way up the feed because I'm going to say absolute, utter, total bullshit this is. West African Ebola outbreak caused by new strain of the disease. This is April 17th, so about a week and a half before the story that said it was all out of control and that some of them were not showing up in testing. An Ebola outbreak blamed for 135 deaths in West Africa in the past month was not imported from Central Africa, but caused by a new strain of the disease, a study in the U.S. Medical Journal said, raising the specter of further epidemics. The spread of Ebola from a remote corner of Guinea to the capital into neighboring Liberia, the first deadly outbreak reported in West Africa, has caused panic across the region, struggling with a weak healthcare system and porous borders. Ebola is endemic to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, and Gabon, and scientists initially believed that Central Africa's Zaire strain of the virus was responsible for the outbreak. Using analysis of blood samples from infected patients, however, researchers determined that while the Guinean form of Ebola virus, EBOV, showed a 97% similarity to the Zaire strain, the disease itself was not introduced from Central Africa. This study demonstrates the emergence of a new EBOV strain in Guinea, wrote the group of more than 30 doctors and scientists who published the preliminary findings on the website of the New England Journal of Medicine. There is no vaccine or cure for Ebola, a hemorrhagic fever with a fatality rate of up to 90% that causes symptoms ranging from flu-like pains to internal and external bleeding caused by liver and kidney failure. Its suspected origin is forest bats. This says forest bats. I've read fruit bats too. And it can be transmitted between humans by touching victims or through bodily fluids. It is possible that EBOV has circulated undetected in this region for some time. The emergence of the virus in Guinea highlights the risk of EBOV outbreaks in the whole West African sub-region. Out of the 197 clinical cases of Ebola declared in Guinea, 122 have died, including several health workers, according to the World Health Organization's latest update, which cited by the Guinea Health Ministry. Guinea's government had previously placed the death toll at 106. They said on Tuesday that the number of new cases has fallen, to Yeah, and it was nearly under control. A senior health ministry official told Reuters on Thursday that the government planned to stop publicly releasing the death toll to avoid causing unnecessary panic. This is the article I was looking for. Did you see that? Did you hear that?
Wow.
So they had understated numbers. The numbers were actually higher, but they came out and they said, no, the new cases now has fallen, and it's fallen so much that we're going to stop releasing numbers so nobody panics. And I got to tell you, there wasn't much that you heard after this article.
No, not at all. Like, if anything. So let me get this straight. I'm going to ask you. Obviously, the first Ebola, that the cases were there, like whatever, 2012 or whatever you were saying, man-made, and so is this one. Obviously, it's man-made. But the first one, the mortality rate was 50%. Then it mutated, right? And now we've got a mortality rate of 90?
I didn't read that.
So
I didn't read that.
But it's in a new strain, right?
Yeah,
or
it's a new strain, but I didn't read that mortality rate jacked itself up 40% anywhere.
Oh, well, Jimmy put that in the chat room or in the Skype thing for me, so I'm kind of reading that.
Yeah,
but
I didn't read that anywhere. I saw that the mortality rate for Ebola is anywhere between 70 to 90%. Okay. This one happens to be more around 90.
Mm-hmm. But it mutated though, right?
Well, it's a different form, and they said it didn't come out of the Republic of Congo. So who knows where it came from?
All right. Crazy. Let's see. So he's dropped me another thing. It says the species of, I can't even freaking read this.
Let me just read a little more. I'm not done with the story.
I'm sorry.
I've been looking for the story because this was the one that actually had that money shot line about them not reporting numbers anymore to avoid unnecessary panic.
Yeah.
The WHO said earlier this month that it would take 2 to 4 months to contain the outbreak, which it is said is one of the most challenging it has ever faced. Again, they were calling the panic alarm before, right? Saying this is horrible, it's broken containment. And here we go. This is from WHO. Quote, what is clear to us from the study is that the virus, and this is what they say, wasn't brought in from the outside, that it is indigenous, said Tariq Javersevic, a spokesman for WHO, which was not involved in authoring the study. Notice how they say that, so you can't call it conflict of interest. I'm sure that they directed the study on how it was to be authored. This means that there were possibly outbreaks in the past that were just not detected. So don't worry, people, because you know what? Even though these just come from out of the blue, never before seen in nature, they probably were here before and we just didn't know about it. Kind of like the weather, right? We just didn't pay attention before. All the dead animals, this is normal. It always happens. Seals with sores all over their bodies. You just weren't paying attention. Are you there?
That's right.
Yeah. All right, go for it.
Well, you know what? He gave me this big old thing with a bunch of words that I will totally butcher, so I'm not gonna even go there. I'm not going there. But he gave me specs on it and everything, so, yeah, I'm not reading this. No way. It would be just too much. And I can, I'll just drop it to you, but I don't think you'll want to attempt this either because it's crazy.
All right. I want to also hit a Wired story about this. There was a story at the beginning of April that came out from Wired magazine under the subheading Superbug. A patient in Minnesota has Lassa hemorrhagic fever, but don't panic. Now, I don't know what Lassa hemorrhagic fever is, but if we had a case of some sort of hemorrhagic fever show up in the United States while this massive Ebola outbreak was going on in Africa, I'd definitely be a little concerned now, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
I hadn't heard about this one in Minnesota, only the guy in Canada that supposedly then he didn't have it, but then you saw that story about the 40 Italians who supposedly didn't have it either till they realized they were testing for the old strain, not the new strain that doesn't show up in the new testing.
That is just nuts.
All right. News from the Minnesota Department of Public Health and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. A Minnesota traveler returning from Africa has been hospitalized with what the CDC confirms to be Lassa fever. Am I the only one that didn't hear about this case in Minnesota? Shouldn't this have been headline news as opposed to MERS? 2 MERS cases with 30% mortality rate?
God, man, what are they doing? They're just releasing crap into the ether here.
This is why I'm still gonna call bullshit. Okay. A Minnesota traveler returning from Africa has been hospitalized with the CDC confirms to be Lassa fever, a viral hemorrhagic fever that is also often lumped together with Ebola hemorrhagic fever, though they are caused by different organisms. Given the news from West Africa of the growing Ebola outbreak there, at this point there were 127 cases, including 83 deaths, according to the World Health Organization's last posted update. I suspect there's going to be some attention to this case, possibly even some alarm. Well, I didn't see one word before your article. So switching from Scary Disease Girl to Scary Disease Killjoy, which is sort of like the Phoenix becoming Dark Phoenix, only without any planets blowing up. The Minnesota Department says there's no sign the disease is spread. And the CDC isn't even likely to have infected passengers it isn't even likely to have infected passengers on the same plane. And if you're thinking, well, surely this has never happened before, a viral hemorrhagic fever coming to the U.S. via an airline. Actually, it's happened 7 times before, and no one caught Lassa from the infected travelers in any of those times. Not even from sitting next to them, not even from living in the same house with them or having sex with them. It is a very bad disease, but it's not the threat like we imagine. Oh yeah?
It doesn't make sense.
Well, let's find out how this individual picked it up then. From the Minnesota's department statement, the general public is not at risk from this cause. This is just like the general public is not at risk from all of the 40 bazillion quadrillion. By the way, I counted all those zeros on the latest numbers, supposedly from TEPCO, and it was a 4 with 18 zeros behind it. Becquerels per hour or whatever they were doing the readings in. But there's no cause for alarm or worry about human health. It's all safe. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
The general public is not at risk from this case. The Minnesota patient is recovering and is in stable condition, so that's good. I'm glad. The ill man flew to Minneapolis, St. Paul on March 31st. Promptly after his arrival, the patient was seen by a physician who, given the patient's travel history and condition, suspected a possible hemorrhagic fever and immediately reported it to the Minnesota Department of Health. Since the Lassa virus is not spread by casual contact, the CDC believes any risk to other airline passengers and crew is extremely low. However, in the interest of protecting passenger health, CDC is working with the airlines to identify passengers and crew who may have had close contact with the ill man during his travels. State and local health departments will reach out to notify these individuals of possible exposure. So that was the Minnesota Department of Health statement. The CDC statement says preliminary information indicates that the patient flew from West Africa to New York City and then caught a flight to Minneapolis. Given what we know about how the Lassa virus has spread to people, the risk to other travelers and members of the public is extremely low. Casual contact is not a risk factor for getting Lassa. People will not get this infection just because they were on the same airplane or in the same airport. Well, so how do they get it then? Is what I want.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, if you can't get it by even having sex with the person, I mean...
Right. Then how could you get it?
Yeah.
Or was someone having sex with camels?
I don't mean to laugh, but damn it, that's
But I
funny.
mean, honestly, if it is so non-spreadable that you can't even get it sitting next to someone or having sex, then how the hell did this dude get it? He must have been doing something pretty bad to get it, huh?
Yeah. Jimmy posted in here, it says that particular Lassa mortality is only 1 to 2%. Then it goes on to say the infection is epidemic in West African countries and causes 300,000 to 500,000 cases annually with approximately 5,000 deaths.
Well, it says Lassa is not Ebola. It has a lower mortality rate of 10 to 20%. Versus 80 to 90% for Ebola. But for precisely that reason, Ebola is less likely to travel by airplane than Lassa. People who develop symptoms are so sick, so rapidly, and so noticeably that they are unable and unlikely to be allowed on an airplane or be able to board. Well, didn't we read that it's a 21-day incubation period for Ebola?
Oh my God. Crazy. The numbers these people are reporting are completely skewed. You can't believe anything that you read in these freaking newspapers.
This is really nuts.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Just disinfo.
It is.
I don't know. I had not heard about it. I guess it's not a big deal that we had some hemorrhagic fever in the mainland.
Wow.
Nothing to see here, people. Remember, the WHO stopped releasing numbers. Oh, wait, though. I did want to click on a link in that story because it had a link to the WHO site where they had been reporting the last posted update for deaths. So let's see if they're still keeping that up. Oh, and look. This links to an update that was last updated April 2nd. So I'm glad the World Health Organization is looking out for our best interests. Let me click a little bit more and we'll see if there is anything else out there about Ebola.
Certainly nothing recent.
Oh, May 12th. Hold on. Here's an update.
Oh, okay.
Ebola virus West Africa update. May 12th. As of 1800 hours on May 10th, the Ministry of Health of Guinea has reported a cumulative total of 233 clinical cases of Ebola virus disease, including 157 deaths since the last update of May 9, 2014. There have been no new cases confirmed by Ebola virus PCR and no new deaths, bringing about the total number of confirmed cases to 129, including 83 deaths. Now, I thought they just gave a cumulative total of 223 cumulative.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense either.
Deaths.
That doesn't make sense either, does it?
No, and now there's been no new cases and no confirmed deaths in the last 24 hours, or last 48 hours.
Oh, okay.
Says there's been no change in the number of probable cases or deaths. 49 cases, 40 deaths, and suspected cases or deaths, 55 cases, 34 deaths. The geographical distribution of clinical cases of Ebola since the beginning of the outbreak is as follows. Conakry, 50 cases with 24 deaths. Gundko, 149 cases with 106 deaths. Mesenta, 23 cases with 17 deaths. Kisudundo, 6 cases with 5 deaths. Debolo, 4 cases with 4 deaths, so they had 100%. And Dingingere, 1 case with 1 death. There have been no new cases of Ebola in Kisidungo since April 1st. Macenta since April 9th. Concarcri since April 12th. April 26th, I'm sorry. No new cases have been reported in Dingere and Debola since March 2014. So this is saying that there have been no new cases for a whole month now. Weren't we just reading about cases in the end of April?
Yeah. They are lying their asses off. It's bullshit.
The numbers of cases remain subject to change. Quote unquote. Remember this, Big Brother. Due to the reclassification and consolidation of cases and laboratory data, enhanced surveillance activities, and contact tracing activities. Didn't we just hear that and how the number of deaths due to gun violence in Chicago's at an all-time low?
Yes.
And that was because of the reclassification of cases. It's amazing how that works.
Oh, it is. Absolutely amazing.
Amazing. That is the magic wand. Bling!
Just rewrite the data.
Yeah, I wish I thought at one point I did have that noise, like the Facebook message noise. Bling!
Just reclassify the numbers. Oh, God.
Called cooking the books in the corporate world.
That's right. That's right.
We
should be laughing. Maybe this thing is spreading like wildfire and they've all been instructed not to report anymore.
And now it's not Ebola, it's some other hemorrhagic fever thing. Then look, it showed up in the United States and he's been in Africa too.
Oh,
and you can't get it, it's hard to get. Don't worry about it. I don't know, I'm calling bullshit. Something is not right. Okay, maybe this just mysteriously went away, sure. Maybe.
And no one else is gonna die, and no one else is gonna, even though 200 some odd people are still quote unquote sick, or whatever.
233 clinical cases, including 157 deaths.
Yeah, there you go. And no one else is gonna die in those numbers, and no one else is gonna...
No, because we don't want you to panic, and because we don't want you to panic, we're not even reporting numbers anymore.
Right.
So that might explain why, as of mid-April, there were no more new cases. Does that seem possible?
Yes.
Because we told everyone to put a kibosh on the numbers. Now, didn't we do that during the swine flu outbreak here? We did. We stopped testing.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy. Oh my God. So if something really, really happens, really hardcore happens and some virus does get let loose, they're just not going to report it.
Right. Why not?
Wow. So that nobody can take any precautionary action. Yay.
Well, here we go. Look. Announcement. Who to change the way it reports H5N1 cases. Ha ha! Henceforward, who will publish information on human cases with H5N1 avian influenza infection on a monthly basis on its influenza page. Cases of human infection with H5N1 will only be reported on the disease outbreak news for events that are unusual or associated with potential increased risk. Member states will continue to require to report information on every sporadic case of human infection as per Article 6 of the International Health Regulations of 2005. So the WHO just won't report them unless it is some sort of unusual event.
Well, Ebola's not too unusual now.
And, oh, look, here's a link off to the side. Influenza at the Human-Animal Interface, which has an acronym, the HAI. Influenza causes viruses circulating in animals pose threats to human health. Humans can become ill when infected with viruses from animal sources, such as the avian influenza virus subtype H5N1 and the H9N2, which that's an odd one. I never saw that one before. And the swine influenza virus subtype H1N1 and H3N2. The primary risk factor for human infection appears to be direct or indirect exposure to infected or dead animals or contaminated environments. That's the end of that story. So our question before about like these viruses just popping up out of the blue from animals all of a sudden, I guess they set us straight on that.
What the hell? H1N1, H1N2, H1N9, I mean, come on. They keep adding the numbers to these different strains. I mean,
I don't even remember half those strains.
Yeah, man. You might as well have H150 or H142, you know what I mean? What happened to those strains?
Never before seen in the wild.
Exactly. Do not have sex with a camel.
Or a platypus.
Oh my god.
Platypuses have venom.
Prepper chicks, just, put a, she put an article in here that says, that, I don't know, Muslims drink camel urine or some crap. Jeez. As part of a, ritual, I guess. Yeah, religious pilgrimage. They drink camel urine.
I can't speak to that, but I guess I'll believe her.
Ugh. Yeah, well, it's, I don't know. It's bizarre. It's, hey, having sex with camels, drinking their urine, it's all the same thing. You're ingesting, a foreign entity. So watch out. Unbelievable.
You know, I'm just
crazy,
scrolling down through, and it looks like in the beginning of April, the 4th, the 6th, that was when some big reports came out that people were freaking out by the numbers. And then nothing much was published in the following 2 weeks until that story that I had read that said that they weren't going to report numbers anymore, and don't worry because it's all under control now. Even though it had broken containment, we never seen anything like this before as far as contamination. I'm trying to see. This is out of some Turkish news. Ebola is a deadly fever which causes an extremely severe disease in humans and in non-human primates in the form of viral hemorrhagic fever. So I guess primates can get it too?
Great.
So why would it come from the fruit bat and not be some disease that was spread in monkeys?
Yeah, you know, don't you think like a bat it would be pretty likely that a bat could bite a monkey at some point, and then the monkey goes and spreads it to humans? That's more plausible than, man, oh man. You know, you can't even believe any of this crap anymore that they publish, you know? It's impossible. It's impossible to take anything with a grain of salt anymore.
This article is actually out of Saudi Arabia, which is kind of an interesting perspective. Our expectations is that we will continue to see the number of cases increase for a number of months because we are dealing with Ebola. What we typically do is we look and make sure that we go through a couple of incubation periods to see if the outbreak is really over. So we fully expect to be engaged in this outbreak for the next 2 to 3 to 4 months before we are comfortable that we are through it. And this article was dated April where did it go? Wait, let me back up. It said April 24th, I think, in the search engine. 4 days ago. So actually this article was published on May 12th. All right.
Wow.
So they're saying 2 to 3 to 4 more months before we're sure that it's over.
Or not.
Or not. Saudi Arabia has suspended all visas for Muslim pilgrims from Guinea and Liberia. So they're not letting people into their country. So
Wow.
how interesting is that Saudi Arabia, which is struggling with MERS, isn't that where MERS came from?
Yes.
Camels?
Yes.
Is calling out the Ebola cases.
Jeez. Maybe they got a lot of people going back and forth from Africa to Saudi Arabia.
Well, I'm just saying that, the World Health Organization is giving us a line of bullshit.
Yes.
The Saudis are coming out going, yeah, well, we're not sure yet. It's going to be 2, 3, 4 months yet before we make certain that nobody's getting it anywhere.
Wow. It's scary. This is scary. I'm not comforted in the slightest.
Yeah, I think I'm going to move on to something else. Because
Sure.
I could sit here all day and start picking through old stories.
Right. Absolutely. We'll go for it.
Oh, I was supposed to have something ready?
That's me too. What? Oh my god. They put out a map of, this is totally something else. The world's heaviest drinking countries revealed.
Germany.
No, actually. No. Actually, the UK doesn't even make the top 10. Which is interesting. The heaviest drinkers in the world are in Russia.
Oh, yeah, my dad would have, told you that.
It says people in the UK are among the most prolific drinkers of the world according to, guess what?
The World Health
Organization. So, if we can believe this, I don't know. Britons over the age of 15 on average drink 11.6 liters of pure alcohol a year, according to the Global Status Report on Alcohol and Health 2014. Oh my god, I don't even know why I'm reading this. The report provides countries' profiles for alcohol consumption in the 194 WHO member states. That's interesting right there. Looking for the resulting impact on public health and policy responses. Alright. And it reveals that the harmful use of alcohol causes 3.3 million deaths a year worldwide. Wow. Could that be a global pandemic, perhaps? Europe is the region with the highest consumption of alcohol per person, making up the entire top 10. Belarus takes the top spot with people on average drinking 17.5 liters of pure alcohol a year, followed by the Republic of Moldova.
Oh, that's up in the Ukraine.
It's up it is.
Belarus is up where Chernobyl happened. That's where they got all the radiation.
Yup, that's right. No wonder they're drinking up there, you know what I mean? Let's see, the figure is more. In Moldova, I don't know how the hell you pronounce that, where the figure
they
is...
They were throwing Molotov cocktails in that city.
That's right. And drinking afterwards, right. Obviously. 16.8 liters, and Lithuania is at 15.4 liters. Australia and Canada also have high levels of alcohol consumption, where people on average are drinking 12.2 and 10 liters of a year respectively. Interesting. I know more people who drink more than that. Jeez. The United States' figure is marginally lower at 9.2 liters. But in Northern Africa and the Middle East, the figure is less than 2.5 liters of alcohol. The Let's see, the average figure globally is 6.2 liters of alcohol. So, yeah, if the WHO is putting out these numbers again, the WHO warned that alcohol consumption increases the risk of developing more than 200 diseases.
Welcome to Nuclear Hot Seat.
Oh, hold on.
The weekly international news.
I wasn't expecting that to start.
That's
I have something that Libby had an interview with a woman who, I remembered. It was called the Unholy Alliance, and it was the unholy alliance between the World Health Organization and the IAEA. And she had actually traveled to Geneva to interview this woman because she, Alison Katz, is I don't know if she actually ran it or if she was just a member, but she was, in the group out of Geneva, Switzerland called the Independent WHO, and actually talks about the entire relationship between the WHO and the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Agency, and tells of all the lies. The WHO lies about everything.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why these numbers could be being cooked up because, they want to clamp down on alcohol worldwide because, look at all 200 diseases. Ooh, look at it could lead to this and that. So, I don't know. Just get prepared, people.
I don't think they'll clamp down on alcohol, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a control mechanism. It's one of those little dangle carrots, just like pot. I think that's what the big push for all the legalized pot is about. You know, it's a way to keep the people pacified, like a pacifier for a baby.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
Go suck on this and then you won't be causing us trouble.
Right. And you won't be able to, talk back when the time comes.
Right, because you'll be too wasted.
Right. Absolutely. Let's see what else these idiots have to say about it. Really, I don't know. It's all just blah, blah, blah. I don't even know. Belarus is the worst, though, apparently. And, Portugal is the least. So I dropped that in the chat if anybody wants to check out the map that's on there. It's kind of interesting. Where else do we want to go?
I don't know. Here, there was a whole bunch of environmental stuff we could talk about that happened over the last couple days. Hold on, let me scroll down the UCY page where I keep all the stuff. There was a huge snowstorm, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw. I mean, it wasn't huge as in feet. I had seen that they were predicting Colorado was supposed to get a foot. Wyoming and Colorado got buried in a snowstorm as of Monday, which was yesterday.
Yeah, apparently
parts of the West spent this day after.
Sorry, my machine is choking. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. They got to their, you know how they have the alphabet names. They finally got to Z. This was Snowstorm Zephyr.
Yeah, they had to get to that, remember.
I actually know a kid whose name is Zephyr, which is the coolest name on the planet, if you ask me. But, hey.
Yeah. All right, here, let me play this.
Parts of the West spent this day after Mother's Day digging out from a late winter snowstorm. The system dropped wet, slushy snow across Wyoming and Colorado on Sunday and continued into early today. Accumulations of nearly 3 feet forced much of Interstate 80 in Wyoming to shut down. The storm also spawned minor tornadoes in Nebraska and forced flash flood watches in Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Wait a minute. 3 feet of snow, tornadoes, and flash floods. Wow! That's like a superstorm.
Yeah, that's amazing. How the hell does that happen?
Tornadoes are caused by heat, and snow is caused by cold.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure how that happens.
Interesting. What are they going to do? They're going to come up with some kind of crap that will make it snow and tornado at the same time? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what. Southwestern Texas had multiple 100+ days just the end of last week, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that.
Yep.
And today there's 60 with a low of 44.
Wow. What kind of temperature swings are those? That's just crazy, man.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on around here?
Yeah. But hey, don't worry about it because they have announced as of yesterday that the Antarctic ice sheet is now beyond the point of no return and our oceans are going to start filling up like they warned us for the last 20 years.
Oh my God.
Yes, scientists warn of sea level rise as Antarctic glacier melts. So here we go, people. We're going to put on the thumb screws for global warming.
Yeah.
In another important story today, scientists warn that a large part of Antarctica is melting and cannot be stopped. New evidence from the South Pole implies a big rise in sea level. Elaine Quijano reports.
Researchers at NASA and the University of California, Irvine looked at 40 years of data, including observations made from planes and satellite images of a glacier the size of California and Texas combined. Eric Renaud is lead author of the study.
At this point, we'll say it's just a matter of time before these glaciers completely disappear to sea.
Sea levels could rise by 4 feet, but not before 2214. It would open the way for greater losses of South Pole ice, which could raise sea levels by another 6 feet. Tom Wagner studies glaciers for NASA.
What we have found is that it in fact looks like this weak underbelly of Antarctica is in fact starting to flow out into the sea and is not allowed to hold it back.
Here's why. The land anchoring the glaciers sits below sea level. As ice melts, more of the glacier comes into contact with warmer ocean water, accelerating the process.
What's happening is that as that ice is getting thinner, it's beginning to pop up off the land. And when it pops up off the land, there's no more friction to hold it back, so it speeds up.
A 10-foot rise in sea level would submerge tunnels and subways here in Manhattan and parts of Queens and Brooklyn. But, Scott, it would also put the entire city of Miami Beach and much of South Florida underwater.
Elaine, thank you.
All right.
Oh my God. That is such horse crap.
Well, if the sea ice melts, I think the ocean levels will rise. I think in some of the predictions, it shows that my area in central New York State will be coastal property.
But the thing is that I've heard with other sources that it was the coldest Antarctic temperatures on record there, and that actually it's the opposite, that the ice is built in other areas, like the ice amounts are like unprecedented there. That's what sources from what I've heard. I mean, I was watching Suspicious Observers. I think it was maybe yesterday or the day before, and he said that there was a scientific article that came out. And I was trying to look for that just now. But these global warming people are just like, oh, watch out, Miami's gonna be covered in water. You know what I mean? When the real scientists are saying that the ice shelf is bigger than ever over there in Antarctica. So, who the hell is lying here?
I don't know. I mean, I really would want to see some real science from somebody that I trusted, because the only places that I have seen that have said that the ice is increasing in Antarctica is, well, let's take a look. Before It's News, Breitbart.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Sites that I don't trust, that typically I point and say whack jobs. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I
actually know somebody whose boyfriend is down in Antarctica, or has been over the last few months. So I could talk to her and find out what's going on.
That would definitely be a good thing, because she's there. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know what to believe, honestly. I know that it was one of the coldest winters up here, and we had some of the most snow that we've had in a very, very, very long time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When you see stories posted in Above Top Secret and Godlike Productions, though, I used to find some good info out of Godlike Productions if you were really trying to watch for something that hadn't broken yet. But you got to be very, very, very discerning.
Yes.
You know, I see this one out of Slashdot. Scientists warn of rising oceans as Antarctica ice melts. Well, they've been warning about that for 40 years.
Yep, absolutely. It's impossible. I don't know. Who do you believe? You know what I mean? Everybody's like all coming out with contradictory things and...
Well, what I would like to see is the time lapse of the satellite imagery of the glaciers.
That would
probably give us
yes.
What we need to know here. So hold on.
Absolutely.
I am on NASA.gov site
Ooh, there you go.
now. And here's the teleconference, which I really don't want to listen to because they're pretty boring. An animation of the ground line and retreat. Animation. Oh, wait, Pigman had this video. Hold on. I did see this yesterday. There were videos about the ice sheet melting, so let's see what they... Oh, look, it's the very next one in the row! Let's see what they have to say. Again, this will be mainstream. That's a lot. There's just music and an animation graphic. So wait, we'll skip that one. I thought there was another one. No, maybe it was the one of the dude talking that we had just played. I don't know. Nope. I don't see any more.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, to me, by the year 2200, none of us will be here. We'll all be dead, and so will our kids. So,
right.
I'm not going to worry too much about it.
There you go.
And like I said, if it happens, I'm going to have oceanfront property, so that's good for me. Get the hell out of New York City and Miami. That's all I could say. If you're worried about it.
And the California's going to fall into the ocean too.
I've been waiting for that for like 30 years. It still hasn't happened.
Excellent. The big earthquake hasn't happened yet either. You know what I mean?
Now, here's something though, that while all this other crap is going on, this has come out of the international news, but I have not seen anything from our mainstream about this. Another one of those facts that gets kind of covered up.
Around 400 mercenaries from the private US security firm Academy are involved in the operation against anti-government activists in Ukraine. That is according to a report in the German newspaper Bild am Sonntag, citing an intelligence source. Earlier, the German intelligence service told the government about the mercenaries' involvement in the operation. However, it's not clear who commands and pays the private military contractors. Academy, previously known as Blackwater, gained notoriety after alleged atrocities committed during the Iraq War. The firm had earlier been accused of involvement in the Ukrainian crisis. An unverified video that supposedly shows US private contractors operating in the city of Donetsk emerged in March. The security company has not commented on the latest revelations, but previously denied any involvement in the Ukrainian crisis. I'm now joined live by foreign policy expert Daniel McAdams to speak more on the subject. Hello to you. What are your thoughts on these recent revelations? Why would the government in Kiev involve foreign mercenaries?
Well, I think you have a lot of Kiev-appointed oligarchs in the East who are very, very wealthy, and they have an interest in trying to quell this unrest. What's interesting about these last two stories we've seen about U.S. involvement is they've both come from major German newspapers, and it makes you wonder whether the Germans are not getting nervous that the U.S. is pushing this too far. We saw, for example, last week in Bild a story that dozens of CIA officers were involved in helping put down the unrest in the East. And now we've seen this other story in a German paper. So I think under the surface, you're seeing a lot of very concerned German people and German businessmen for what's happening.
What impact could the presence of these private contractors affect the situation in Ukraine, Daniel?
Well, I think we've seen a change in the tactics of the you wouldn't call them military, because every picture that I've seen, they look like some sort of ragtag militia, very violent. But you see a change in their activities. They're burning police stations down. They're shooting. I saw at least 3 unarmed people shot today on YouTube. It seems to be their purpose is to foment chaos and to destabilize the East. So they're not really about stabilization, but destabilization.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, contractors from Blackwater were accused of atrocities in Iraq. Why would a company with such a track record be invited onto Ukrainian soil in the first place?
Well, because they're not connected to governments. They don't feel they need to abide by international law. They are able to use extreme violence. We saw what happened in Fallujah. You saw a city decimated by these people. So I think that's when you want to have muscle that's not accountable, that's who you hire.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Western reaction now to the developments in Ukraine. We've seen some disturbing images of government troops opening fire at unarmed civilians during the referendum. Are we going to see any condemnation from Western states, do you think?
Well, as is the common practice when the U.S. doesn't like a vote that's coming up, they've already condemned it beforehand. The State Department issued a press release yesterday saying that it condemned this referendum that was being held by, quote, armed separatist groups. But anyone with a computer and an internet can see that the armed organizations are not the people in the streets. As I said, I've seen at least 3 people killed today. These militia were shutting down polling stations and shooting people. I think the U.S. State Department seems to be believing its own propaganda for some reason. It's funny that they did support an armed insurrection in Kiev where there was no election, but you do have protests in the East. They're trying to hold an election. The U.S. condemns it. The circumstances are not great for the elections in the East, of course, but they will not be any better for the May 25th presidential race.
And just briefly, the US and indeed the EU have said they won't recognise the referendum results. Why does the opinion of all these people not count?
Well, the U.S. loves to support democracy, except when there's a danger of people voting the wrong way. Look what we saw in Egypt not that awfully long ago. It really is a hypocrisy on the part of the U.S. government. And I think it's becoming more and more obvious to the rest of the world. It's damaging our reputation.
Daniel McAdams, Executive Director at the Ron Paul Institute, we thank you for your time.
Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute.
Wow. Well, I mean, that was right, though, what he was saying.
Yeah, but what do you think of 400 Blackwaters on the ground?
That's insane, man. I mean, what corporation is freaking funding that?
I'm sure that some of the money that we sent there probably, or maybe Black Ops, who knows? I'm going to drop this video into chat though, because there is video footage of the guys in their, what do they call them, BDUs?
Yeah.
And it sure looks like some sort of U.S. mercenary group.
So who are they calling freaking the armed militia there? They kept saying that, those key words.
The pro-Russian groups, I am pretty certain.
But notice how they use the keyword militia? They're not even really militia, and those freaking pro-Russian paramilitary groups are probably, most likely, just the paid mercenaries on both sides, you know what I'm saying? They probably got them on both sides. And they're just labeling them pro-Russian militia groups. I mean, they just use all these freaking keywords. It drives me nuts. Drives me insane.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's in charge over there right now. I just know it's a big freaking mess.
It is, and we keep making the mess worse.
Yeah, we're poking it with a stick.
Absolutely. So, I don't know. Blackwater is... absolutely, I don't know, you guys. It just seems like, with all the crap going on in Africa, now all the crap going on over there, it's just all over the entire world now is becoming destabilized. Just the entire planet, they're destabilizing. And we better figure this out pretty quick, or else they are going to get what they want.
Which is?
which is to completely, like, evacuate all freaking money and funds from the entire world stage and create themselves this one world. They're gonna create themselves king over everyone, and everybody's gonna be a slave, and they want more than half the population gone off the planet so that they can ascend to their perceived rightful wherever the hell they want to go. They're going to go to hell is where they're going. But
well, don't forget, we also have this entire destabilization that's still happening in Syria, by the way.
Yes!
Like, notice how Syria just kind of dropped off the news cycle?
Right.
But there were... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Guaranteed the crap that's gone on in Syria hasn't stopped.
Oh, no, actually, I just saw that, militants now cut off the entire water supply, I believe, to Aleppo. So this is going to get pretty ugly.
Oh my God.
But I wanted to read the story that came out of Al Arabia news yesterday. It caught my attention because it was a guy in one of his, I don't know what those outfits are called. I don't remember, with the head thing and their scarf. But the drone, every time I see it reminds me of the drone story. The Saudis, like, Dubai stepping in, embracing drones all over their country to go delivering things. Right. I was like, oh, it looks like there's an occupational hazard there with spinning rotors flying above everyone's heads. But hey, Kuwait minister accused by U.S. of terrorism funding quits. What? Yes. Kuwait's Justice and Islamic Affairs minister has resigned after a senior U.S. official said that he had called for jihad in Syria and promoted the funding of terrorism. Last month, Naif al-Ajim rejected the comments made in March by U.S. Treasury Undersecretary Dave Cohn as, quote, groundless and baseless, unquote, and he was backed by the cabinet. Why is our U.S. Treasury Undersecretary offending Kuwait's Justice and Islamic Affairs Minister publicly?
That was my question right when you read it. I'm like, what? Why should he
publicly?
Be saying anything about it anyway?
Right,
yeah.
And then causing an international stink over it? That doesn't seem like his place.
No, it's not. Not at all.
But on Monday, Ajim said that the Gulf states ruler had accepted his resignation. Local news service Al Ray reported on Monday. Kuwaiti media reported last month that he had already offered to resign once, citing health reasons. Attempts to reach Ajim were unsuccessful. Cohen said that Ajim had, quote, a history of promoting jihad in Syria, unquote, and that his image had featured on fundraising posters for a financier of a Syrian rebel group linked to Al-Qaeda, the Nusra Front. Kuwait has been one of the biggest humanitarian donors to Syria and Syrian refugees through the United Nations, but it has also struggled to control unofficial funding for opposition groups in Syria by private individuals. Wait, are those the same individuals, rebels, that Obama said it was okay for us to donate to because they were the good Al-Qaeda?
Yeah!
That's what I thought.
Jeez. This is just, I don't even know what to say anymore.
Unlike some of the other Gulf states, U.S. ally Kuwait is against arming rebels fighting to topple Syrian President Bashir al-Assad, but it has tolerated fundraising in private houses, mosques, and on social media. In particular, some Kuwait and U.S. officials fear that campaigns that give militant Islamist groups funds to buy arms will not only fuel violence in Syria, but also stir sectarian tensions in Kuwait. But like other Western countries, the United States considers that Assad has lost legitimacy for his violent repression of what began as a peaceful protest, but does not want to see him replaced by the more hardline Islamist group. So, that's why he's still in, why he's still in power. They just said that in regards to the Ukraine. You know, they're all for democracy and toppling the government to replace them unless they're not replaced with who they wanted them to be replaced.
That's right. The puppet governments.
And that did happen in Egypt, by the way. And now all that Muslim Brotherhood that we stuck into power that then were deposed are all going to be executed, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. There were hundreds that have all been sentenced to death now.
Oh, man. That is, and whose fault is that?
It was ours because we ordered Morsi to go into Syria and then the army revolted. That's how this whole mess started. That was like attempt number 32 to start a civil war in Syria and pull Iran into the middle of it.
They're trying and convicting the wrong people here. Absolutely.
So anyway, I thought that was just kind of a strange story that our Undersecretary of the Treasury makes some off comments about Kuwait's Justice and Islamic Affairs Minister, and out of all of it, he resigns. It just seems kind of odd.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Resigns to maybe put somebody else worse in place? There you go. Oh my God. Guys, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that, but just why would he even resign? Why wouldn't he turn around and say, F you?
Right. It's very simple. I mean, very simple.
I do that every day.
That's right. I do too. Man, oh man. Health problems.
Now, here, we're going to take a look at NATO lining them all up here, though. Because they're going to do all this now NATO troop assessment. Oh, hold on. I'm disconnected.
Oh my God.
All right, here we go.
Hate that.
Troops and hardware have massed in the Baltics, where NATO is carrying out its annual war games. They've been dubbed the Spring Storm. Now, the drills in Estonia, that's right on Russia's doorstep, were the biggest since 2003 when they were first held. 6,000 troops taking part in it. A French cybersecurity team, fighter jets, a missile defense system from Poland, as well as a Belgian anti-aircraft unit. All of those are involved in these. And these graphics beside me here might help to give you a clearer picture of the NATO military build-up in Eastern Europe as the Ukraine crisis goes on. Dozens of fighter jets and spy planes are there to make sure the alliance dominates the regional airspace. And international affairs commentator Rick Rozoff, he says the links between this show of force and the crisis in Ukraine are abundantly clear.
U.S. troops are stationed in most every former Warsaw Pact country outside of the Soviet Union itself. Next year, the U.S. and NATO, this is a joint enterprise, joint endeavor, are going to place 24 intermediate range Standard Missile 3 interceptor missiles in Romania, right across the Black Sea from Russia, with the prospect 3 years later of deploying a similar amount, 24 to be exact, Standard Missile 3s of a more advanced variety in Poland. So what we're talking about is both a very real military presence that poses a threat to non-NATO members in the neighborhood, and those are in the first instance, of course, Belarus and Russia, but also it's a symbolic gesture to place U.S. military forces in countries bordering Ukraine right now and bordering Russia, because what it suggests is that the U.S. is making a military commitment to defend its NATO allies by making even a nominal deployment of military contingents to those countries.
So there you go. I don't know, to me that's just like poking a stick.
It certainly is. We keep doing that all over the place.
But you know what?
All over.
It doesn't matter who wins. I don't really think they care who wins, and I don't even know if Russia cares that we're doing this, because in the end, all those big boys are invested in all the big corporations, so they all win on the backside, just kind of like the bankers. They win going up or going down.
That's right. Whether or not these countries do whatever they're going to do, the corporations and all this crap are still going to profit from either side. So it doesn't matter, does it? You're right. You're absolutely right, because they bet on both sides. And they profit from both sides.
I don't think peace is profitable.
No, you're right. Peace is not profitable. But they create the conflict, and so they benefit from whichever side prevails from the conflict. And that's the fundamental problem that's been happening for ever and ever and ever.
I see it as gladiator games. It's just to get off on watching death, and they make money at it too. So hey.
Absolutely.
Oh, how do we wrap this up? Update. Rapper who severed his penis says he's fully functional.
Really?
Yeah. That's a story that came out yesterday. And oh, what? Water testing in Britain shows that their water has detectable levels of cocaine.
Whoa. That's
even
crazy.
After being super filtered.
Wow. That's nuts.
So beware. Go to England. Get a buzz.
Don't drink the water. Or you may want to drink the water.
Yeah, well, or don't come back and hope you don't have a drug test.
Yeah, no shit. Wow. Hey, I went to England. Really, really.
So guess what, guys? Mr. Kevin Blanche is up next, I believe, because it is Tuesday.
Yay.
It looks like it's going to rain here at some point. But hey, my plants need growing.
There you go.
So,
rain is good.
Alright guys, I guess Tuesday was I don't even know where it went to, but that just kind of dribbled out quickly. Everybody stick around tonight, because it's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. After this, Post-Ignorance of Mr. Kevin Blanche, then we run Libbe Heleve, Random Replay, Mr. John Stokes and Jack Blood between 1 and 5 p.m. Eastern. The Ocelli Effect with Chuck Ocelli. 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We got Jonathan and Steven, running 8 to 9. On the Brink with Jeff Weverson, 9 to 10. Primer Time with Dan and Michael, 10 to 11. And Prepper Chicks After Dark Roundtable, 11 to 12, midnight Eastern. So the whole day is chock full of fun.
Yay! Pay attention. Tune in, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today, Wendy. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out and waking up with us this morning. Happy Tuesday. And I will catch you guys tomorrow. Am I here by myself tomorrow?
Yeah, I won't be
God.
here. Sorry. Sorry.
All right, guys. Everyone have a happy Tuesday. And I will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.